Okay. I'm Steve Swedler. Whoa. Hey, go back. Skip my first slide. That's 15 seconds lost. All right, sorry. I'm going to touch about social networks, and specifically the question of, are they helping us build bigger silos? And when I say social networks, I mean online social networking sites. And so these are some that I participate in. Not all of them on here in different to different levels. But basically, when we think about social networks, I think we're our view is clouded by three myths. The first myth is that the more social networks that we participate in, the bigger circle of friends we're going to have. And that's not really the case. When we participate in social networks, as we choose different ones, we tend to take our friends with us. So when we sign up, we amass some friends and then we take them with us. But the myth is that we look at it like a chain. I have friends on this site, and I have this site, and this site, and I'm the glue or the link between them, and it goes on forever. That's not the case. So then we think, okay, we really come to terms with that, and we think, okay, let's more like this, right? I have friends, my friends have friends, they have friends, and they all overlap. And so now I have this huge mass of friends. But again, that's not really the case either. What really happens is that all of our friends that have a lot of the same friends in common with us, or the same acquaintances. And so we build more like stacks, right? And so our friends have very similar friends and so on and so forth. And they do touch with weak links in some cases, but for the most part, they're pretty much like silos, right? So the second myth is that social networks generate effective action offline. But what we have here is we have a signal to noise ratio problem. And what I mean by that is that people online, the people who make the most noise are usually a small minority. And they make so much noise that even though there's probably a majority that agrees with them, what happens is that that majority becomes complacent because there's so much noise they think, well, something's already happening. I don't need to participate in that. And so what we have is we have a problem where we have a false majority mentality. And that leads to things like what I call the Ron Paul syndrome. Excuse me. The Ron Paul syndrome, which is that if you looked online, you would think if your only frame of reference was online, that he was a shoo-in for president, right? The whole time he was running, everybody was so loud and so much noise. But in reality, that just didn't translate to the real world. And the reason for that, I think, is mainly because of the third myth, which is that social networks, we believe, social networks are a good sampling of society in general. And the fact is that they really are not. The majority of people who are online are participating in non-social media. People who do participate in social networks are spread out over a lot of sites. They're skewed to a younger audience. And so the impact is much less than we perceive. And again, that signal to noise ratio problem. So I call social networks the pimple on the face of the internet, right? It garners a lot of attention, it's very obvious, but it really overall has very little impact on the overall health of the host in this case. So if social networks are so bad at real world action in creating true networks, what's the answer? And I think the first technological answer is mobile. With every other person in this room probably owning an iPhone and the iPhone App Store and BlackBerry apps, we're able to connect with people in the real world when they're out and about, not sitting behind their computer and not typing away, but we're able to get people together. And then getting those people together allows people who have different views to discuss things that they otherwise would not discuss. We also need to strengthen our weak ties. So the people that we know peripherally, we need to go out and we need to make an effort to know them more. We need to make an effort to interact with them and bring them into this kind of an environment. And this is a great event for that. There's a lot of people who are not usually together. And then we have to take a good hard look at ourselves and decide what it is that's important to us, what we're willing to invest our time in and our resources in, and then we can only then can we use the social networks as a tool to further our causes, but they're not in and of themselves enough.